Good morning, everyone. Welcome once more to the Aurum podcast, where we help you discuss all matters that relate to the working environment. Karibuni sana. My name is Anthony Kuria. I'm your host today, and I am with my colleagues, my usual colleagues, Zippy Kuria, a HR consultant. Good morning, Zippy.
Good morning, Anthony. Good morning, Martha.
Yes, and also we have Martha Thuku, our HR expert. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning, viewers.
Yes, karibuni sana. Now, as I said earlier, we are Aurum consultants, and this is our podcast where we discuss all matters that relate to building a conducive working environment. Today, ladies, we are continuing on part 2 of the employee relations. Last week we were here with Zippy, and we discussed a few things here and there as regards to employee relations. We discussed, Zippy gave us a few gems here and there that relate to how a working environment can be done, can be harmonized and carried out in a manner that enables both the employers and other stakeholders enjoy the best possible environment due to having a satisfied, hardworking, motivated employees. So today we want to discuss the next aspect of it, and I'm looking forward to this. Now, let me start with Zippy. Probably you could tell us, give us a reminder of what employee relations really is.
Thank you, Anthony. I was hoping we could ask Mother for a new perspective, but just to remind what we talked about last week on employee relations, we see this is actually historically known as industrial relations. But we talk about employee relations to help us realize it's not just about industrial relations, because all of us don't work in the factories industry. We work in different diverse environments. So this is actually relating to, contractual engagement, the emotional well-being of the employee, the physical well-being of the employee. It's an all-rounded aspect of managing employees. So when we talk about employee relations, we are looking at the relationship between the employer and the employee in relationship to the contracts, in the relationships to the emotional well-being, in relationship to their physical well-being. I would allow Mother probably to just add a bit to that, but in a nutshell, that is what we are talking about.
Yes, Martha, what's your perspective? How do you call employee relations?
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Zippy, for that contribution. So, first of all, I wanted to remind the viewers that I work with LVCT Health. And yes. I also wanted to remind them that we are major in mental health and GPV. So we offer counseling a lot. So should you need corporate counseling, personal counseling, especially during this time of COVID and so many family issues, please reach out to us. Even marriage counseling, please reach out to us. And so to the question on the table about employee relations,
sure.
I agree with Zippy. It's really not about industrial relations. Some definitions will refer it as the efforts the organization puts to maintain positive relationships with employees. And when I say this, I will add the word constructive, and it's about partnership. So there's a myth, like Tony, you have worked with the bank, like I did. And in the bank, the other side of employee relations was really major. Like I worked in a bank where especially the clerks and the drivers, they carried the labor laws on one hand, and the collective bargaining agreement on the other hand. So they knew their rights. In that bank, even they refused promotions because they will remain in the union where they can be defended. Even if they are not working, salaries are still being added and no one can touch them. So they knew their rights And I call that the negative side of employee relations, because it doesn't have to be the employer only who is giving. The employee also needs to know that this is where I get my bread and butter. What can I do to make it better? So when an employee ties themselves with this organization that will defend them and their rights, and like, in the bank we used to be employed, when we are 24 or less, and you remain there as a clerk and you are 60 and you are retiring, and you don't have anything to show because you are defended by this employee relations thing. That brings in industrial relations, and so you don't work, you don't build yourself, you don't do anything to give back to the organization that is giving you your bread and butter. I find that is not constructive, and it's not positive relations. So no matter what, like in the banks, they did so much for the employees. There were so many advantages. There were so many giveaways that brought in, that could create constructive employee relations, but the staff never even got to notice that. I see that even in the NGO world where I'm working, there is no union per se in the organization, but there are some people who have just decided to be shop stewards. And every time you come up with something, they fight it. It's like it is their right to maintain where they are at, and they want everyone else to maintain there. So that is not employee relations. That is negative energy that will never promote employee relations. So, as I said, it is about partnering, employer. What do I get, and what do you give? What is the employer giving, and what is the employee getting? And for me, that is a good definition of what employee relations is. And I don't know whether Zip, you want to add something? Thank you.
Wow, I think, Mother, you put it very well, and it just makes me think about the employer. Even as we are talking about this discussion of employee relations, it's also about the employer as well. As an employee, what am I giving back to the employer? A lot of times, as employees, we think the employer doesn't have any rights. They don't have any recourse. It's like they are there. They are not having any options at all. Yet, like you're saying, this is supposed to be a constructive relationship, constructive way of doing things where the employer is giving, but also the employee is giving. And, I like the example you've given about employees who will sit there and they'll be in the same position. For years, you worked in this organization for 30, 40 years, but at the end of the retirement, you have actually nothing to show for it. Yet you find there's someone else in a totally different environment where they embraced this positive relation, and they've been able to grow in their career. And given the same opportunity and the same number of years, the difference is black and white. So it's important, even as we are having this discussion, to realize this is not just about the employee, it's also about the employer. What kind of relationships, are we building up? What kind of input are we putting into the organization where we've been placed and where we've been entrusted with responsibilities? So back to you, Anthony.
Wow. Ladies, you have basically encapsulated what we discussed with Zippy last week. We were talking about the fact that, if it's employee relations, who are they relating with? Because you can't relate with yourself. You have to relate with someone else. So last week, I remember we said it's employer-employee relationship, where this is basically what we are discussing this month, whereby the employer-employee relationship, our desire is to discuss ways in which it can be harmonized, in which it is no longer what, as Martha, you described it, what it used to be, industrial relations. Because industrial relations was really, the term became adversarial, where it is one camp against another. But where now we have, in fact, the term has now metamorphosized to employee relations, because now we are realizing that the employer and the employee are relating together to create a harmonious whole, and to be able to realize that they are working for an enterprise that both of them have a stake in, and both of them want to push it forward. I appreciate the comments that are coming in to our viewers and our listeners through Facebook. We keep sending your comments. We will highlight them as we go. Thank you, Wanjiko, for saying you like that, the fact that employee relations is a give and take relationship. Thank you for that comment. Keep them coming as we continue. Now, the second point that I wanted to bring, this one I'll ask you, Martha. When it comes to employee relations, what is the best practice out there, to handle this particular topic?
Okay, let's look at employee relations from the employer angle, and maybe is the best practice that can maybe enhance employee relations in an organization. And this is what I would recommend, and I'm sure Zippy, you will add more. The first thing is I can talk about is communication. So, especially when change is inevitable, because change brings uncertainty in an organization and even in people's hearts. So communicate. Whatever it is that is happening, the what we are doing, the how and the why, it is important to get buy-in, because once you don't have buy-in, what happens? Everyone comes with their own, what do I call them? You just come with your own understanding, and then you get your click, and then you talk about it there, really from where you are at, because you may not know the bigger picture. And so it brings disharmony in the organization. So it's very important to communicate and let the people know where they are at. What I have done for me in the various organizations I've worked with, the HR, I've ensured that the topmost, maybe the director, the top director, is in touch with the people on the ground. I've worked even in the bank. The branches were many and vast in the in the country. So how do you ensure that the person in head office is in touch with the staff there in Kakuma? So I have always tried to introduce this thing of having, even if it's a quarterly call, where this person sits and everyone logs in and they can talk and they can say what is happening. They can air their views. So it's like a down top kind of model of communication. So they are not being told this time. It's them who are saying what is in the ground, because they are the ones who are in the ground. They're the implementers of your strategy, what they're experiencing, what support they need now from the head office. So that is one of the ways that any employer who is listening to this podcast can look at to ensure that everyone feels like they're in touch. And you'll get buy-in when you do that. The other thing I can talk about is involving, especially in strategy formulation. You need your employees to buy in your you have a goal, and you want them to buy in. It is not theirs, it is yours. But how do you let them buy it in so that they can run with it and feel like part of the event that is happening? And then consistent feedback is also good, even for managers at each level. As long as you're managing a certain number of staff, let there be consistent feedback on how they have reached here. What the model of this mostly that can bring this as a best practice is try the coaching model, where you are not telling, you are letting people come up with their own solutions, and then now you get feedback. And then you can guide where you need to guide. So it's not always you who is telling. And also, it's very good to invest in your employees, maybe through welfare initiatives that we have discussed before, maybe in trainings, even staff retreats, just to ensure that everyone is feeling like a family. For reward and recognition, let there be equity. So you are not discussing salary for this at the side. This one you are giving 2,000, and for the same position for someone else you are giving 100,000. Just that is not equity. That is not fairness. And if that is noticed, then you'll find those relations will shake. And finally, maybe before Zippy can contribute, enter into some corporate social responsibility and involve your staff to do it. So it's not you. Ask them for ideas of what we can do for the community that we are serving, and then let them run with it. So when you do all these things, those are best practices that can actually bring good employee relations in an organization. And I'll give a chance for Zippy to chip in. Thank you.
Wow. Zippy, what can you say?
Zippy is having some challenges with her internet. But yeah, as I have said, those things you need to think through the things that you can afford as an employer and the things that you can't afford. The ones you can afford to promote employee relations, just do them, and you will. The gains are better in the end. Thank you, and Zippy, you can continue.
Thank you, Martha. Sorry about that. I think I was muted. So I was saying, I think there's something Martha said about mentoring employees. One of the things I think we need to understand, once we give an employee responsibility, it's important for us to trust them to actually do that job. Because if we have gone through a proper interview, a proper engagement process, and we have the right employee on board, I think we can't trust that employee once we train them and we help them settle in the organization to be able to actually carry out that responsibility. So how do we do that? We need to, if we need to have and hold them, we need to do that and help them, settle in. But we move away again from having to overlook on everything they are doing and not micromanage them, but allow them to actually do the work and expect the results. So you engage them in a way that you're getting the results that you're expecting to get and move away from micromanaging. When we start micromanaging employees, I think, again, the other thing that happens when it comes to the employee relationships, they sometimes feel overshadowed, or they find themselves feeling overcrowded, and that can create a lot of other issues. So that is one of the areas I would think we might need to work on, especially if we're in leadership positions. The other thing that we probably need to also look at, like Mother said, is communication. How are we communicating with our employees? How are our employees communicating together? What channels have we created for them to be able to communicate to one another and communicate effectively? It's one thing to communicate, but how do you communicate effectively as team members and as leaders to your teams? Do your team members understand what exactly is expected of them? Or are we making assumptions, assuming they know, then we start having all these challenges? Because a lot of times, I've realized a lot of problems actually come from issues of communication. And it's not that probably the communication was not done. It was not done effectively. So effective communication is very critical. And also allowing the employees to ask questions and to give feedback. Have open door policies where employees can be able to come and confirm, they can come and clarify issues. When we give instructions and we don't allow those opportunities, then what happens? They get stuck and they continue doing, and sometimes they continue doing the wrong thing. So by the time you catch it, you're realizing that, time has been wasted or resources have been wasted. And again, it starts bringing up conflicts. So it's important for us to be, aware about that. Again, let's appreciate our employees. If we are in a place of leadership, whether you are a manager, whether you are an HR, whether you are a boss, let's appreciate and show gratitude to our team members. And even for team members, when something has been done for you, you've been given a salary increment, you've been given a bonus, even you appreciate, have an attitude of gratitude. And this way, we start creating or fostering an environment where, there's good relations between the employer and the employee. Because we said when we were starting, it's a give and take. So as an employer, when I'm giving, as an employee, you have to take. And I have to see that you're taking it and you're taking it well. And the same way, on the other way, if it's the employee giving, as an employer, I need to appreciate what it is that they are doing. Sometimes we overlook, and when we are overlooked, we are human beings, we have feelings. And when I'm overlooked and no one appreciates what I'm doing, either I will think I'm not doing it right, or either I will think I'm doing it very well, but people don't see it. thing I would say is offer professional development. Sometimes, we just need to encourage our team members to develop themselves professionally, to do something that will help them grow. Martha says something about, those employees who will be in unions and they will refuse to grow and they're just there. We need to move from, we've employed you as a clerk, but are we going to see you as a clerk for the next 20, 30 years in this organization? Right now we are having to think about reskilling our workforce. What are we doing to help our employees become better? Reskill themselves so that even as opportunities come, instead of having to declare them redundant, we can say this opportunity has come up and you can actually take up a role in this other area. So let's look at how do we develop our employees? How do we help them become better? And of course, we need to, do all this in an effort to foster a good working environment. Thank you.
Wow, wow, wow. Ladies, you're really bringing it up nicely. Issues of best practice, and we can sit here and discuss lots of areas. I like the way Martha, you say things like, first of all, making your employees buy into your strategy, and then both you and Zippy have discussed about communication and effective communication at that. Things to do with consistent feedback, things to do with investing in staff. I remember, Martha, you discussed about the way one time you used to work for the same employer back a while back in the banking industry. And those kind of things like bonuses and for example, motivating your staff. I used to see very strange things happening, and I learned from them. I remember one place I worked where two staff members, they are working in the same department. In fact, they used to sit side by side to each other. And bonuses came, and it was one of these Asian banks, and one of the staff was Asian, and the Asian staff was given, I think, 5 times what her colleague, who was not an Asian, was given. And I remember it became, instead of being a motivator to the team and to the bank, it became now a scandal. It became a scandal. It created a big, big issue. And it was not just one person, it was several other persons, where there was an item that was supposed to bring staff, making them part of the team, appreciating them, telling them, welcome, thank you for being part of this team. Unfortunately, it became a tool of division, where now those who felt unappreciated were just costing through their jobs the following year. They were doing the bare minimum. It became a scandal until now. When bonuses came the following year, things had to be done a bit better to be able to restore the fractured relationships. So these are some of the things as employers. You're trying to generate goodwill. You're trying to generate goodwill in terms of blessing. They have produced this huge pot of provision, and now you want to divide a portion of it amongst them. As an employer, you've got to be very careful about the way you are seen to be trying to relate with your staff. Otherwise, it will be seen like you're favoring others, you're patronizing. It's a balance that has to be made. In the meantime, I can see comments are coming. We appreciate them. Thank you for Jackie Mora. You say, I like the buy-in idea because most of the time management decides and imposes the agenda on the staff. I believe you're saying because it is collaboration, let's have everyone's interest at heart. That's very true, Jackie. Douglas Kilonzi, you've said losing an employee to a competitor can be devastating. But sometimes employees do not have amicable relationships with the employers, and they most likely would leave. Yeah, you've said when an employee feels comfortable around their employer, and if they are appreciated, they are much more likely to remain loyal. That is true, Douglas. They say that people leave their bosses; they don't leave their companies. People leave their employee. People leave their bosses. They don't leave the company. Now, the third item that I wanted to find out from you ladies, now as I shift the questions, how do you create a culture that encourages good working relationships? Zippy, let me start with you.
Wow. How do you create a culture that fosters good working relationships?
Exactly.
I think one of the things we need to learn doing, and I think we talked about this before, is where we need to help our employees understand from the word go when they come into the organization, what is our organization all about? What do we do here? What are our value systems? What is our mission? What is our vision? Where do they fit in into this whole equation? I think we need to start creating that culture from when the employee steps in their foot into the organization and help them in knowing this is what we are doing, this is where we are going, this is how I fit in into the whole plan. And these are the opportunities that are available for me even as I grow into this organization. Of course, the other culture we need to create is making sure we have employees understanding what it is that they're supposed to be doing. Sometimes you find you bring in an employee, and because sometimes there's changes in the organization or jobs are evolving, you find probably something like a JD becomes obsolete. You know, we need to make sure again we are equipping them to understand this is what they are supposed to be doing in terms of their responsibilities, and this will actually minimize potential conflicts that would happen if something is not done and you're telling them this was your responsibility, and probably they're thinking this was never communicated to me, how is it my responsibility? So it's important for us, as we are starting to create the culture, to make sure there's very good understanding. Of course, the other good understanding that needs to be there is reporting structures. Sometimes I found this in different organizations. It can be very confusing. Employees don't know who they're reporting to, or sometimes they are getting different instructions from different top management people, and and it brings a lot of conflict issues because they don't understand, or they don't know who am I responsible to, who am I reporting to, who is supposed to give me instructions here. So that brings about a lot of conflicts if it's not taken care of. So I mean, to start with, in terms of creating a culture, those are very critical elements we need to make sure actually are understood by employees from the word go. And the other thing I'm thinking about is we need to create an environment where employees can participate in different activities in the organization. Let's think about when we are having activities, that are social activities, or maybe activities that, we need to do something that is contributing back to the society. It could be the walk, it could be a marathon, it could be a run, it could be we need to plant trees, whatever it is that you ascribe to in terms of your values as an organization. Let's encourage our employees, to get involved in these activities. And some of these activities actually help employees interact outside the busy, stressful work environment, and they get to know each other's personalities better.
Very true.
Outside the work environment, where they're a bit relaxed. We are running, and I'm really panting. I'm not able to go 5 kilometers without stopping. And we can be able, to have conversations that would make the other person understand me a little bit better as Zipporah. And these are the same relationships we transfer back to the work environment. So when we are dealing with each other, we actually kind of understand these are the challenges with this individual. These are the the strong points about this individual, and we are able to actually maximize that. So when we talk about culture, which we say is the norm of doing things, the way we do things, we need to look at it from a very broader perspective and see what it is that we can do to make sure we are fostering good working relationships. I will allow Mark to add into that.
Yes, Martha, what's your view?
Thank you, Zippy, and you have really nailed them. What I can add, especially when we are defining and communicating company values, in my head, what has come is, you can have the company values and written there in a book, and even you can, when the new people are coming in, you can let them go through them, but really, there is the aspect of even making a strategy of how to continually communicate the values to remind people. And beyond that is whether the heads of the organization, are they following these values? It's one way. Let's say like Tony and Zippy, you have kids. When you're telling a kid you can't do this, and you are doing it, what are you communicating? So you talked of that. Let's say I can mention some of the values like teamwork, innovation, honesty, integrity, accountability, fairness. Let's talk about fairness. And Tony, you said very well with the bank that you worked in, where someone of a different race was given more money.
Yes.
So if that organization has put in their board out there that one of their values is fairness, are they practicing it really? So is walking the talk. So the management needs to walk the talk for them to create this culture that they are talking about. So it's not just having them in paper, it's about walking the talk. The other thing Zippy talked about is mission and vision. Very important for the staff to buy in, and the communication part. Something Zippy said that came into my head is when you go and do those extra work things, you create memorable employee experiences. Have you ever, I don't know whether you have been where you have worked, that's something that has been done in the organization and people keep talking about it.
Yes.
I remember like in my current organization in 2020, normally there's a culture of having a Christmas bash for everyone. But now there was COVID and we couldn't meet. In my head, nothing was going to happen. But someone came up with an idea that we can actually have it online. And I thought, how can you have an online staff
an online
bash
Christmas party
with 365 staff? It was beyond my thinking. But as this team, I work with a very great team in my department. They kept on giving me ideas. And one day I thought, maybe we can try this. And let me tell you, we did that bash online. And what came out, it's something that is being talked about even today. So that's a memorable thing that it didn't cost much because then it was online. So we didn't have to buy many things. All we did is every office buy a cake and we celebrate. But we were all online and everyone logged in. And it was, for me, it was a memorable thing that is being talked about. So having those memorable things that will help the staff keep talking about their organization wherever they are, and then encouraging that down top communication, like Zippy said. The one thing I can emphasize is showing recognition and appreciation. Everyone likes to be appreciated. Mostly, you will find staff want money. But what touches the heart most is that email you send to someone that I appreciate you for how you supported me in this, or how you drove this, or how this you did, or even having team projects. Like everyone, there's this project, you let everyone define what they will do to attain that project, consistent feedback and check-ins. And then when it's successful, appreciating them even in the front of everyone. That really touches the heart. Small things. I used to work with somewhere where we had this thing called Heart of Gold. When you do something very nice, you see even the executive director just come to your office and bring you that Heart of Gold. It's something that the organization had just planned. And you think, imagine the executive director just appreciating you for something you didn't know that they knew you did. So some of those small things showing recognition, you create a culture that encourages good relations where staff are feeling appreciated. So that's what I can say about that. Thank you.
Wow. Ladies, here you are really, on this chilly Saturday morning, you're really making it exciting. I can see Jackie Mora. She has sent 3 comments saying, wow. She said, yes, effective communication. She's talking about providing psychological safety, letting employees know that they won't be punished or humiliated for speaking up. Then she was also added about memorable experiences where people having coffee meets online. Indeed, you can see from these comments, people are downloading, appreciating, and saying, yeah, this is it. That is very true. I have never heard about a Christmas bus where people are meeting over coffee. Kila mtu yuko in 365 people with cups and probably a cake. And they are saying Merry Christmas, and then yeah, I mean that must have been really something very interesting. You know, as much as it's true, employees, you know, it's an employee-employee relationship where, as it were, it's your meeting at the middle. But as Martha, you've put it, the driver is the employer, the manager, the owner, the person on top. You're the one who, as it were, you're the driver of the culture in your company. And if, as you describe, if the executive director can come with, you know, just an appreciation to tell somebody, I've noticed you've done that project well. You might not be getting money, but I can tell you, the executive director walks into your office to tell you that you've done well. Hiyo siku mazee utakuwa ukitembea, mazee, you'll feel nice. Man, I've been recognized. You know, I've been recognized by the boss. That means whatever I do, as I, you know, your what's the word? You know, you're reinforcing, you know, the good things that they're doing. You know, and that really generates. I can give examples. I know we don't have time. I can give examples what I've seen good management, people who have made me feel good in my own life as, you know, managers and all that, and others who yeah, we could write a book of how not to do it. You know, managers, senior managers who have done things you're left wondering, goodness, I've not studied a management course, but this is not how to run a team, how to run a management, how to run an organization, as it were. Now, as we come to a close, our time is really going up. Briefly, ladies, briefly, what are the causes of conflict at work and how do we resolve them? I don't know who will start with. I don't know. Let me start with you, Martha. Briefly, what are the causes of conflict and how do we resolve them?
Okay. Mostly the cause of conflicts can come from the management perspective, can come from poor management. And when I say poor management, is where staff are not trusting their management. That's a big one, eh? When staff cannot trust you. And you know why a staff cannot trust management is because of the unfair dealings that they keep doing. If there is if let's say we talked about things like conflict of interest, it's the management who are driving conflict of interest or of handshakes with vendors. They are the ones who, you know, the things that our staff are getting to know about the management that are negative makes the staff not trust their employer. So if it's the employer who is initiating those evil things, then you cannot expect trust. Even like what you talked about, the bonus.
Yes.
I can tell you that you did not trust your employer. So even if they made good the following year, I'm sure in your head you still thought wamekuchunja, you know, because in your heart they favor that other. So they don't recognize diversity. You get?
Yes.
And it's so important to recognize diversity. The other things are unclear job roles where, you know, you have ad hoc things that you're given to do, and you don't even have a job description. And even if you have a job description, it's not being followed. Then where there are poor communication lines, you have, like you have talked about, managers and how not to manage, you know, things like bullying and putting people down, you know, not appreciating. And even if you don't appreciate, then you don't have to put someone down. And then that lack of fairness and maybe for me, what I can say, when I know ZP will add, what can you do to resolve this? For me, I insist on having clear, defined policies. The HR policy must be clear. I feel like the HR policy equalizes. Meaning, if this is what you have decided you're going to do as an organization, let's say about reward and recognition. So in the HR policy, you have a policy about compensation and benefits, meaning everyone, it is applying across board. Whether it is your sister you have employed as a director, or whether it is that office assistant there, down there, it is applying across board. That when we are employing you, we'll tell you, you're in this grade, your salary is this, it is in this job group, it is in this job grade, and your benefits are A, B, C, D. So you won't have a director coming and saying, this one, we are adding 10,000 shillings more. You need to know why, because it is not in the policy. So that's what I call fair dealings that help staff understand and also trust their management. The other thing about that, especially mostly reward, compensation and benefits, it's a major in things that create conflicts in the organization. You find staff saying, we do the same thing, but they are paid less. So if you have an equitable way, and I want to say this, and any staff who is watching, I'd like to say equity is not equality. Meaning, we could be in the same job grade, so we are earning in that job grade the structure that we have set. So you could be earning more than me, not because of anything, but that is what is called equity. It is not equality. So if I earn 100,000, ZP doesn't have to earn 100,000, because matters to do with compensation come with various indicators, e.g., when you got this job, how much were you earning, where you came from, how much time has you put in this organization. If it's an organization that adds salary or pays cost of living every year, there is a difference that can happen. And also, there are organizations that pay for performance. So even if we are in the same position, you could perform better than me, meaning your reward will be higher than mine. So there's no way the salary will be equal for everyone in a similar job grade. So the members of staff need to understand that. But that equity, even you as an employer, when you know you have applied equity, when you go to sleep, you're sleeping very well, knowing that you are practicing fairness in your administration of staff things, and you're following the policies that you have set. And I'll let Zippy to add some more. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. I think you have covered that very adequately. And I think I would just want to touch on two things, and especially when you talked about transparency and pay and equity. I think this is one of the biggest challenges we have as most of organizations, where you find there's no transparency in the way we compensate our teams. When you look at the government, I think those compensation and pay structures are way out there in the open. So it's not a secret that you know so and so, then this pay grade. And that's why sometimes you'll hear someone saying, this is above my pay grade, I'm not able to handle such a responsibility. So I think we probably need to start thinking as organizations, how do we start bringing transparency when it comes to compensation for our employees? Because like Mother has alluded, there's there's a lot of compensable factors that we have to put into consideration. But how do we bring this into, the open, that I know for me to be able to actually to get to this kind of pay, there are all these factors that are involved. And not just these factors alone. There has to be performance. How do we measure performance in our organization? What are the factors we are looking at? Is this performance, open to everyone? Do we know actually this is what Mother is doing, and it's actually very clear that Mother is performing very well, yet in the same job grade, and I'm just there sitting and not performing and expecting to, to earn a similar amount? So there's a lot of things I think we can start thinking about to bring a bit of transparency in the way we compensate our team members, and this will give us a lot of peace. The other thing I think I want to touch, and probably sooner or later we'll need to have a discussion around this area, is bullying and harassment. And this brings in toxic work environment. And, I'm thinking probably sooner or later we need to talk about toxic work environment and how we can, avoid, or what we can do to make sure we don't have such environments in the workplace. So again, this is an area that, again, I think is important for us to look at, so that, again, it doesn't become a challenge, because this is one of the biggest conflict areas, that we find in the work environment. We find people are being bullied, people are being harassed, and harassment can come in many, many forms. Harassment can come in form of being given unrealistic expectations and the timeline set, and I'm not able to perform within this given timeline, and this will bring in a lot of harassment with it. Or it could be harassment where we are talking about things like sexual harassment, another topic that we really want to talk about, but these are things that are actually happening in the work environment, and these are things that are creating problems when it comes to employee relations. So again, these are areas we need to discuss as we go along, but I feel these are critical areas. Again, if you look at how do we resolve these issues, is one of them, I think we need to identify where the issues are coming from. What is the core cause of these issues? Once we understand where these issues are coming from, then we'll be better placed to start understanding how do we start addressing these issues. The other thing I would say is, as leaders, we can never be afraid of conflict, because conflicts will always happen in the workplace, whether we like it or not. So we need to embrace conflict and embrace the conflict, and know, as we are embracing it, then how do we start addressing conflict areas? How do we start helping our team members to address any possible conflict challenges that will come along? And there's a lot we can talk about this subject, but I do believe that we still have an opportunity next week to discuss the same subject. So we will cover some of these things as we go along. So thank you. Back to you, Anthony.
All right.
And let me add a bit about that conflict issues. And that's why I talked about policy. The HR policy should constitute all those things that you can call zero tolerance. We don't do this here. We don't bully. We don't harass sexually. Right now, there is also a policy that is being worked on and then pushed very hard. It's called prevention of sexual harassment within organization, that is touching even the outside people that you interact with, like vendors and all. Don't bully those people or ask for handshakes or do those things. So when you have a clear defined HR policy and it has all those policies showing zero tolerance, then you are kind of trying to ensure that conflict does not happen. What came into my mind is, even when you have those policies and you're selling them to staff, you will find some managers feel like they are not affected by those policies. So they will still bully and nothing will happen to them because they are managers. They will still sexual harass. They'll harass because someone is pregnant. They'll harass because someone is of a particular religion. They refuse to embrace diversity, which is critical in a work environment. And all those things, even if they are defined in the policy, and that's what I said, there's no way the management can separate themselves from what they are selling to the staff. If this is the way we do things here, they must be the first champions of what we do. So if they do not practice what they want staff to practice, there will be a lot of conflicts and people will not support them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies. I said brief, and your brief is very brief. Because our time has gone. I guess I love the passion. I mean, I appreciate the passion. I can see even from the comments, Jacqueline Chepkonga has sent two comments. Her last comment was, Zippy, I like your approach, transparency across the organization. That tells you, for you ladies, you have the passion of what you do. Issues, if we had done the whole day, we could discuss issues to do with employee relations until probably noon. But time is not on our side, it's seriously gone. And we appreciate all the comments, all those who logged in to watch us. We really appreciate you listening in and sending in your comments. And if you'd like to know more about us, we are found on Facebook as Aurum Consultants, and on LinkedIn and on YouTube. You can also get in touch with us through our email address and contacts that are at the bottom of your screen. We really appreciate for you coming in. We appreciate you, Martha, for coming, giving us very good insights. And we're looking forward to next weekend, where we will have our monthly webinar where we discuss issues relating to this matter, to the monthly theme on a longer period. We'll have 1 to 2 hours where we can really discuss this particular issue at length. But in the meantime, thank you all for logging in. Thank you, Martha, for coming. Thank you, Zippy, for the insights you've given us. We look forward to discussing this matter at length next week. And to you, our listeners and our viewers, please make sure book the date next Saturday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. We will discuss issues related to employer relationships in depth, and where you can log in, you can send your questions. We will discuss them all at length. So in the meantime, God bless you. Thanks for logging in. See you. Take care.
Oh, it was to go to 9:30.